Hi, welcome to a new episode of the Divorce Coach. My name is Simone and I'm the divorce coach based in Germany.
And hi, I'm Claire, and I'm a divorce coach based in Northern Ireland.
Yes. As you can see, we're still without Salma. It's a decision that she took, which we respect, and but to stay on a continuum, we will be the two of us, and we hope we help you with questions you have around the topic of which lawyer suits your situation. And I begin with to say, when you are going out to find yourself a lawyer, I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking that you're giving and handing over your power to the lawyer, which is absolutely not true. You are in charge. It is your divorce, and the lawyer will, however your circumstances, tweak it to you how you go in with your goal and your strategy and your idea of what the divorce is about. It's not about that the lawyer will tell you how it's going to go. So that to me is the one of the biggest points I want to make to go into this topic. So yeah, it's about how to find legal representation that suits your situation and your personality. Claire, what is your first take on this?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's such a big issue, isn't it? It's such a big topic. And there's so many different ways to do a divorce now. So many different ways. I think it is really important, in my opinion, it is important to find out your facts as early as you can. Because one of the biggest difficulties on a divorce journey is disappointed expectations. Well, I'm going to get half the house, or the children are going to be with me more than 50% of the time, or whatever it happens to be. So
Mm-hmm.
when we set ourselves these expectations based on nothing concrete, then we can fall a very long way. And that makes it even harder to navigate things. So the concept of touching base with a lawyer to gather information earlier on is a really, really sensible option to do. Now, in the UK and in Northern Ireland, most solicitors will give you a 30-minute free consultation. And I would say to you, go and speak to a few of them, because you won't know until you speak to someone, first of all, what their background is, or whether you think you're going to work with them. Because in life, let's face it, there are humans that we connect with better than others.
Mm-hmm.
And you do not want to be in a situation where your divorce lawyer is not somebody that you feel you have a connection with. That is not going to make it easy to go at any point to have a conversation, to send an email. It will destabilize the whole process for you and make it much harder. So having someone that you feel a connection with is important, but you can't do that if you haven't actually met them.
Yeah. And I think preparation at this point is key. Especially if you're going to go, you could do the same with divorce coaches or when you find yourself a therapist, right? You won't go with the
Absolutely.
first best. This is
Yes.
about, finding the connection. And because time is limited, if I refer to your UK approach, it's different in Germany. We pay for we don't have this pro bono thing. You pay
Okay.
for the very first exploratory session. So then, yes, I think one of the first questions to pick up what you've just said is what are you in for? Which basically means you could probably Google first, what is the process of divorce in your country, in your jurisdictions? And you could absolutely, with you are now already prepared. This is what I think. And then you can ask your lawyer, and then maybe you already see the way they respond to what is the process of divorce. And whether you are the type of personality that needs an awful lot of information, see how the lawyer responds to that question in comparison to what you already know. Do you already feel that he's giving you enough or not enough? Right? This is then something where you can then pick up on and say, oh, I have heard that this, and then see if a conversation is happening. There are people that are good in only having certain milestones they want to exchange with the lawyers, and there are other people. I have a client, she needs a lot of, not hand holding, but she needs a very close connection with the lawyer, especially because if the divorce is becoming high conflict, there is so much which is outside the best case scenario. And then what the question is, what is then the solicitor able to stay patient if I go in and have questions, because I want to stay informed and I want to see what's happening in order to make the decisions, right? If at one
And that's
point,
a sense of control, isn't it? When you keep informed, if that's important, you have a sense of control within a process that it can be very much outside your control. And I think, listening to what you're saying, it's very important that if you have children, that you find a lawyer that has a reputation as a family lawyer. You don't
yes,
want to go to a law firm that doesn't have a family lawyer in it if you are going through family courts or for a divorce, because they don't know how to have your best interest at heart if they don't have experience about it. So asking around, and if do some Googling, ask some friends. I think everybody knows at least one person somewhere, even if it's on the outer spheres of our friendship circle or acquaintance circle. We know people that have been through a divorce. Do not be afraid to contact them and say, who was your lawyer? How did you find them? What was good? What do you wish you had known? Because learning from other people's experience is a really, really valuable thing. I mean, we are using our experience from our journey to help you. So ask somebody who has been through something in some way, because what it'll do is it'll start to help you to know, no, I don't think that's going to work for me. Actually, now I realize I need somebody who is in a law firm that will also have somebody in the law firm that can deal with property. When I got divorced, my solicitor's firm didn't have anyone who dealt with property. And when we were changing the house ownership and the legal deeds across, I had to find a different lawyer. That's not something I recommend doing if it's possible to avoid it. So it just, because it created more stress. So find out what are the different things that you may need to consider. And when you look for a lawyer, are they in a firm that has other people? Have they been recommended? Yes. Have you done family law? Have you done conflict divorce? Talk to me about your experience in this area. Don't be afraid to interview your lawyer, because you're paying them. They're going to be your employee, for want of a better word. It doesn't feel like that, but that is what it is.
Yeah.
So you interview them and find out, what is your experience? Why should I trust you?
Yeah. And I think picking up on what you just said is, if you have property and if you have a the German word is Stiftung, if you have a God, I'm sorry, I can't think. I don't know, maybe it comes, but whatever your circumstances is, you know what, if we know divorce is about custody and it's about money and it's about maintenance, you know what, before you go in and speak to a lawyer, know what your life has been like around these topics, right? So then yesterday in preparation for a client who is potentially about making a shift to another law firm, I came across this interesting side that the lawyer said, you know what, very often people approach us and I don't know what they're about. They talk a lot, but they don't really, you know what, it's very difficult for a lawyer sometimes to pick up on the pieces that are important to them, because they are about certain topics. So the more you know about your circumstances, the more clear can you ask the lawyer, can you handle that? So are you bringing property into the divorce? Is there going to be a maintenance which is outside the norm? You know what, if you are coming from a high income background, it is less likely that it falls into the norm of, at least in Germany, it falls into the average of what maintenance topics are about. And then you want to be with somebody who is more, it was more experienced with high net. There is a thing, high net worth.
High net worth, yeah,
is a divorce, and these people don't only. This basically extends to what you just said. You know, in custody cases, not only want somebody who's good with custody cases, but then you need somebody maybe who is having a collaboration with a tax accountant architect, or with what's it called? What did I call it? Like a forensic accountant. You know what, and if they don't have that, ask them, would you immediately, and I think this is an amazing question that I came across yesterday, do you have the capacity to acknowledge that this is now where you're at the end of your knowledge, but you immediately know now I need to pull in new people. And will you tell me that way in advance? Because this will then also increase the expenses, right? How reflected is the lawyer to also see maybe we come to a point where we have to extend, our network. And are you able to acknowledge that? For that, the lawyer needs to know what he's up to, right? I think very often we go into a divorce and we don't know what we are bringing. And maybe if you don't know, maybe it's something to write down is in the first interview, the lawyer asking you the right questions. So he's really picking up things because I forgot to brief them about it. Does it make sense?
Yeah, no, it does make sense. And one of the other circumstances I was thinking of is if you co-own a business, that's a very specific section from a divorce perspective, because you have the business law and you have the divorce law. And actually, so that's just, there are different complications that you need to think about to see. Another thing that's important that I'm a feeling person. So I get a good feeling, I walk into a house, if I'm buying a house, I'll know within 5 seconds of walking through the front door whether this is possible or not. And I couldn't explain why. I'll just tell you, no, it doesn't feel right. So when you go and speak to a lawyer, it is important that you get represented by somebody who is true to your value system. So true to my value system is I'm not a shark. I didn't want a lawyer who had a reputation as being a shark to get everything they could, squeeze every last penny out. That is not who I wanted to represent me. So think about that for a minute. What type of person do you want to represent you? Because they're representing you on your behalf. And you have to be okay with that. So if your solicitor goes off and does something that you're not happy with, were you happy with them completely in the first place? They're good questions to ask, because my solicitor was very much able to listen to what I had to say. And she said very often, I hear you, but I think this is I think this is something we should look at. So she was able to say it in a way that allowed me to think of it rather than thinking, she doesn't hear me, she doesn't know what I want. So being able to have that kind of dynamic of, okay, what I want is important, but yet you have the experience and I need to trust you. So you have to have that feeling of this person will do the best for me in a world that I don't understand. Yeah. And sometimes that's a feeling. Sometimes it is. But asking around, because some of my friends, when I first went to a counsellor, I rang a friend of mine who I know is very like me. And I said, you mentioned you're seeing a counsellor. You're very like me. So if you think she's very good, she's going to be good for me. And she absolutely was. But that's sometimes a good starting point. Do you know anyone who's quite like you, who's needed a solicitor? Use it as a starting point. Everybody has to start somewhere. And this sense of, what do I want out of this? Do I want everything at all cost? Or am I willing to compromise? Or if you want to walk away from the house to get away, you need a solicitor to say, that's not in your future best interest. Sometimes we underplay things to try and keep the peace to a point when actually we need someone to advocate for us in a way that we're not able to advocate for ourselves. Does that make sense? That makes totally sense. And it's a very important question to also know yourself. And then to also be honest, I might, just to get away from conflict, not make decisions that I'm entitled to. And I think there is a distinction, right? I'm not about high conflict, but I also need somebody to come to my side to help me. To support me to find my voice, right? So I think then another question that just came to my mind is, and I think the moment we go into the divorcing in terms of legality, I think the moment the other party is not providing the information that is needed in order to split whatever there is to split in order to come to the table, right? It's about the money, it's about the children. So I think a good question then is to ask, how quickly do you realize that things, so I might come in and say, I really want an amicable divorce. I want to do it eye to eye. I want it democratic, right? You know what? Will you help me, I don't know, to go into mediation, collaborative family practice? There are all sorts of things.
but are you aware of pointing out moments where you realize this is now no longer democratic? Because I think a lawyer who is experienced probably knows which are the triggers that to them means this is going to be complex. And I think, you know what, when you are asked to bring numbers to the table, or you ignore to understand that custody arrangements have now changed, this is not the 50s, right? And if you're in whatever reason bombarding negotiation processes by withholding the information or the necessity to work with the change that's going to come, I would want for our viewers or for my clients to have a lawyer who picks up on that and says, I've been there, I know that. I support you through amicable, but I am experienced enough to pick up on things when things go wrong, and I will talk to you, because then, and this is the point that just adds immediately, that will impact the costs.
Yeah. And that's another
another one, right? The costs.
I was just about to say that's something that's worth, because some lawyers charge for every 6 minutes, some charge for every 15 minutes, some charge for every 30 or every hour. It's really important. And again, this is a control thing. It allows you to feel like you can manage this when you understand that the solicitor says we need £500 or £1,000 up front, and when we need more, we'll contact you. You need to know, I think I didn't do this, and I think it's important. And again, hindsight and all the rest of it is, every time I send an email, do you charge me to read it? How much do you charge me to reply to my email? Is it less expensive to get everything I need down, send the email to the solicitor, and then say, can we do a 6-minute phone call, and set a timer? And actually, because the solicitor has had a preempt of all the things you're going to ask, so they can have their answers ready. And if you do your email in bullet points, you can go, this is what I want to ask you. Can we arrange a phone call? Because, well, everybody's different. I find the interaction on a one-to-one over a phone is a quicker way for me to get a grasp of something, rather than reading it and then I have another question. Then it just takes so long. But find out what way a solicitor charges. Find out, is there an overall charge? Because there are charges for all of the things, that all the court stuff, the application. There are standard charges that are for every lawyer. And then everybody else has different fee structures, different pricing, and different structures within the pricing. It is important to find out, so that you can start to think, right, financially, what am I going to need? Roughly, how much will this cost? Also, find out things like, can you give me an expected time frame? In your experience with the history I'm giving you,
very good.
Can you give me a realistic time frame? I'm not asking you to hold to it, but I'm asking you to help me to know, is it going to take 2 or 3 years, or what is it going to take? And another thing that's just come to mind when we're talking about it is, you know, there are different reasons for citing a divorce. And if you are able to, sometimes in different countries, you can wait for 2 years and do no fault. Is that something, if your solicitor is saying, well, you have enough to go for unreasonable behavior, you can start that now. But you get to decide, do I want to start it now just because I can? Or do I want to wait for 2 years to do, if the other party agrees, no fault, because it might be less inflammatory by way of emotional responses and damage limitation and different things. So just because your solicitor says you have enough, I think you should take the time and say, I'm going to think about that. And you think about the world you're in and what impact will both of those options have? Because as I said, you are employing the solicitor. So you need their advice and their information and their insight and their knowledge. But equally, your solicitor doesn't know your circumstances. They don't know how you respond to emotional traumas. They don't know how your to-be ex is going to respond. And it is important that you make a good decision for you, bearing in mind that most decisions are changeable. Yeah. And it's not so much that, and I think this is what we will help you with as the divorce coaches. It's more about the lawyer should then ask you questions to go home with. Basically, out of my experience, these are typical contested issues, right? And then you write those down, and then you go home, and then maybe speak with a friend or with us.
So these are contested issues. Okay, it could become, and then we can also look into options right there and then, which you then take back again to the law firm, because you know what, if you do want to wait, I mean, we don't have Northvolt in Germany, and I think the UK no longer, but Singapore at that point had. If you wait, then I think it is important that the lawyer then basically points out, but that is basically 2 years you're waiting for somebody to hide money, right? You know, it's all in web.
Yes.
And
Things that you don't know. Yeah.
Right. So then you want your lawyer, in my world, to make me aware of things that might potentially are contested issues.
Yeah.
So you write them down, and then basically because lawyers are so expensive, then you go home and this is with a divorce coach, because this is what we do, is what does that mean, right? Because you will have to take a decision, but then in what way? We look beyond the wall, beyond the obstacle, what's on the other side. So that is also something that I love to just add to what you just said, you know, what can potentially become contested.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the biggest thing in life, isn't it? It's what we don't know that we don't know.
Yeah. So
and this is why we bring in people that know more than we do. And that's where divorce coaches come in, because we can see what our clients can't, because we've been there and we've trained for it, and we can see the other side. Another thing that came to mind there that is worth considering is bringing somebody with you that you trust to the appointment, the first appointment with the solicitor. Because because so often what happens is we don't hear everything. We think we do. We think we remember, but actually we don't. So if you go in thinking, well, I'm going to get 60-40 of the finances, 60-40 time with the children, and the solicitor says to you, you're only going to get 50-50, or it might be the other way, the other sort of 40-60. It's almost like a doctor saying to you, I have to tell you that you're going to get cancer. And you hear nothing past something that is a big shift in your expectation. But if you have somebody else with you, you can then go and have coffee and unpack what was said. What was did you pick it up properly? Because if you have an expectation that straight away a solicitor is going to say that's not accurate, it is easy to get caught on that in your thoughts and miss other things that are important. So there is value in bringing someone that you trust, whether they have experience in divorce or whatever or not, or whether it's just someone that you trust as a person. Bring them with you, because then you have someone to say, I really like this person because of this, this, and this, or it's interesting you heard that. This is what I heard.
Yeah, good. Yeah. I think this was I hope you all wrote down, or you just, but rewatch this, because there's so much important information we're giving you, because we want to make sure that you are represented in the best possible way to go through the second most stressful life event as best as possible. And there's one more question that I wrote down that is probably something we're not asking, but we should. Do you have the time to handle my case? You know what? I think,
That's a good question.
Very often you're just going to go and they say, okay, we're going to do it this way or that way. And then, but you also want to make sure they have the capacity to work with you, right? I mean, if it is a first call, then basically there's no strings attached, right? There's basically she's just saying, okay, this is how I would do it, depending on your question. And then you also take the luxury of not working with them. But if you then say, okay, but I really like this person, you want to make sure they have the capacity to work with you.
Yeah, and if they're in a big law firm, is it going to be your solicitor that's going to be handling your case, or is it going to be somebody in their office?
A good ad.
Because that can happen. And again, it's just important to know that, because you might want to be in touch with the person who's actually, so the solicitor might be the overviewer, but somebody else might be handling things on the ground. So again, asking that question initially will allow you to know that if you ring up, you may not get to speak to your solicitor, but it's okay because this person is dealing with your case, and so long as there's continuity. But I just think it's good, again, it's good to know that it's good to know the ground rules. It just definitely makes it easier.
Yeah. There's not so much of a wrap up, I think, today. We will have the takeaways again after after we finish our video. because it was so much content, rewatch. I think that's something I would recommend.
Yeah.
And we wish you well on your journey. Like, subscribe, share.
Can I add something before we close?
Oh, I didn't ask you. Please do.
I'm just being awkward here. But there's something that came to mind is in life, when we look at making decisions, we so often try and make the right decision. And making the right decision can feel like a bit of a weight of responsibility. And choosing a lawyer, is this the right person? We can get caught in that. If I asked you to maybe take away the words right and wrong and think, this is a decision I'm making now based on the information I have. If in 6 months or a year's time something occurs or something happens, or you realize this isn't working out the way I wanted, or I'm not getting communication, please, please, please give yourself permission to go, maybe I need a second opinion. Just because you make a decision to start with somebody does not mean that you need to continue to the finish with that person. Maybe somewhere along the line, something occurs or happens, or it's just not working for you. Please, please, please do not feel you have to stay there just because you've made a decision to be there. Give yourself flexibility to go, this isn't working out and I don't know how to fix it. So I'm going to go and I'm going to speak to a different solicitor, because this is your life. It's your future. It's your journey. And if you're not being represented in the way that you want to, for whatever reason that may be, it is the only person who can change that is you.
Yeah.
And again, go to the future and look back and go, would I wished I had tried? You may go to a different solicitor and they may tell you exactly the same thing. And then you think, okay, so it's not this solicitor, it's the circumstances I'm in. But at least you won't second guess yourself and get frustrated and annoyed because you don't think the person's working on your behalf.
This is so beautiful. I'm so glad that you picked it up before we finish, because there is the common perception that people who change their team are difficult. It could be for the first time in your life, and I am now addressing probably more women, that you are finding a voice. And if you find a voice because of your divorce, there is a good chance that you come to the exact point that you were just mentioning. This is not working for me because I'm changing and I want to, and I realize my solicitor is not working in my best interest, but you just sucked it up because you've sucked it up for so many years. And if you now find a voice because of divorce, please do change the solicitor. And it does not matter whether that solicitor or whether your family or whether your friends now try to label you as being difficult. This could really well be your first step into independence. Yeah. So thank you so much for pointing that one out. Beautiful You're point. Welcome. Again, thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and we see you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.